Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it comes from a translation of a message that I received, and the message reads like this. Hello, my brother. How are you? Can you please post my own story as hidden identity? My brother, next year, that is when I am going to die. So I have been living in this foreign land here in South Africa for the past 14 years. But next year, I am supposed to die because that is the oath that I took. That is what the covenant stipulated. When I came here to South Africa, I was a nobody. I was just a nobody, and I was just a poor man. Back home in Zim, I had learned how to become a mechanic, but I then ran away from the guy who was teaching me mechanics because this guy, he was very evil-hearted. And one thing that I used to hear about this guy was that he was using his own relatives so that he can make money. And this was the truth, nothing but the truth. Because what I noticed about this guy was that whenever at his house, when none of his relatives were there, then we will struggle a lot. Most of the customers, they will just come for a quotation and they will never come back. But whenever you would go back to the village and go and collect his relatives, because he had this big pickup truck, so he would go and collect maybe 4 or 5 of his relatives. And when they will be staying at his house, then we would have a lot of customers, a lot of cars that needed to be repaired. So we always had those rumors that this guy, he was using his own relatives. And it was not only his relatives that were being used for his rituals, but as his workers also, we were being used for his rituals, because there was this other man. So this man, we used to call him Postori, which means a man that goes to the white garment prophet churches. So this man, since he used to go to these white garment churches, he was then given a prophecy, and he was told that, do you know that the money that you are being given by your boss at your workplace, it is not real money, but you are being given newspapers. That is the reason as to why whenever you are given your salary, the very next day, then your salary will be finished, because you do not have any money at all. You are just because your boss is not giving you any money at all, but he is just giving you some newspapers. So when this man came, and when he told us that our boss was not giving us money, but he was just cutting up pieces of newspapers and then placing those pieces of newspapers as if it were money into the envelopes, and he would pay us them, and he would give us those envelopes saying that this is your salary. We laughed at him and we thought that maybe he was crazy. But when we sat down, we then started to calculate, and we saw that indeed there was nothing that we were doing with our lives, because each and every payday you'll be happy and you will tell yourself that I am going to buy this and that. But when the day comes for you to go and buy something, sometimes along the way you will be robbed, or you will just lose your money. For me and my workmates, we then went to that man's church, and when we went there, we were then given some river stones, and we were told to bath ourselves, like to place those stones in your bathing water. Then you will bath yourself, not using any soap. Then after that, you were not supposed to use any lotion or to dry yourself. So we did these things for 3 days, and on the 3rd day, that was when our boss started to mistreat us. He started to hate us a lot, until I ran away. It was me and this other guy. We ran to South Africa, and when we came to South Africa, that guy, he then started working in Musina, and he was working as a mechanic. But as for me, I wanted to be in Johannesburg, because I had been told that there is so much riches in Johannesburg. And when I was still back home, I used to think that maybe South Africans, they just throw away money. When I came to Johannesburg, that was when I saw that things were really different, and things were not the way that I thought that they were going to be. So I then started working for this other man who used to have his own garage. He was a South African man, a mechanic. But one thing about these mechanics, they are all the same. They only think about themselves. As long as you are working under them, then they won't give you any money at all. This man, what he will do is that sometimes he would only give me 20 rand, and he will say, this is the money that you need to go and buy some food. So I was almost working for free. He said that he was going to teach me how to become an auto mechanic. I saw that this man, he was just using me for free. I then thought of looking for a job. As I was walking back to town, that was when I came across this other service station. I just went in there and I had so much confidence, and I asked to see the manager. I was told that the manager was at the back because at that place there was also a car wash. So I went to the place where that manager was, and I spoke with him and I told him that I was looking for a job, and he then hired me just like that. But the problem that I started to experience at that service station was that I was the only guy who was a foreigner there, and they just didn't like me, and they didn't like the way that I had been hired, because at that place the only people that were working at that place, they were of one tribe. They did not want to work with other people, even if they were South Africans. As long as you did not come from their tribe, then they will make sure that the boss was going to fire you. And when they saw that their boss had hired another man who was not a South African, a foreigner, they hated me even more. They kept on asking me how had I managed to get this job. Maybe I had used some charms, but at that time I want to confess that I had never visited a traditional healer. What they will do is that they would make sure that I work overtime, and after working at the car wash, then the supervisor, who is a black man, he would then say, you are not yet knocking off, you need to go and work at the filling station, filling up the cars. So I used to work overtime and I would never get paid, but at least I was happy because I had a job. It then happened that there was this other man who used to come almost each and every time to fill up his car. He had a VW Amarok. Back in those days, only the rich were able to buy those VW Amarok, the bakkies. So he used to come and fill up each and every time. He would fill up a full tank, and you could see that this man, he has money, and he was from Zim. So one day I then got the courage to ask him how was he able to make so much money in a foreign land, yet we were just suffering. So this man then laughed at me and he said, why do you say that I am rich? I then said that because of the car that you are driving. He said, oh, this toy, this one, it is just a toy that I use when I just want to drive around to relax my mind. You should come to my place one day, then I am going to show you my cars, that I can show you how much rich I am. And he came one day after I had knocked off, and he picked me up and I went straight to his place. My brother, I nearly collapsed when I saw the cars that were parked in his garage. This man, he had 10 cars that were parked in his garage. They were like three in a row, then one in the middle. It was a Ferrari, a red Ferrari. I nearly collapsed as I was looking at all these cars. I asked him how had he managed to make so much money here in South Africa. He then laughed at me. So this man, even though he had all this wealth, but he did not have a family. So I thought that maybe his wife and kids, they were in Zim. But with time, I then found out that this guy, he sacrificed his own wife. So this guy, when I told him that at the place where I was working, I was always being mistreated, he said, I am going to make a plan for you so that I can give you a job. So this man, he said that I want you to become my butler, so that when I am at the golf club, you'll be the one that will be pouring my expensive wine for me, and you can drive me around. So I agreed, but at that time I did not even have a license. So I started working for him. I was now working as his gardener. But what surprised me was that even though I started working for him as his gardener, previously he had never had any gardener at all, but the place, it was always clean. Even when I was working for him as the gardener, when I would wake up, like you plan the job that you're going to do the next day. When I would say that tomorrow I want to cut the branches of that tree, and when I would wake up, I would see that the branches of that tree, it would have already been cut. And when you try to find those branches that would have been cut, you will never find them anyway. So till one night I had a dream. I saw my boss's wife, but she wanted to tell me something, but her tongue had been cut off, so she could not talk to me. The next morning, feeling really afraid, I then went and I spoke with my boss because I wanted to please him, to show him that I cared for him. So I thought that maybe his wife, if she was in Zim or anywhere else, she was in danger. So I told my boss that I had a dream and I saw your wife, and I think that you need to communicate with your wife because she might be in danger. This man then said, "You saw my wife? You mean that you saw my wife?" And I said, "Yes, I saw your wife." The man then said, "Follow me." So I followed him upstairs. When we went to his bedroom, I saw something that shocked the life out of me. I saw that on his bed, on the other side of the bed, there was a coffin. This man then said, "Since my wife has chosen to reveal herself to you, this means that there is something that is special about you. So let me take you to my spiritual father." When I was taken to that man, that was when I was strengthened, and I was told that I was going to be given some tokologies, but these tokologies, they were not yet fully alive. They were still half alive, for there was blood that was needed. The man then said, "Whom do you want to sacrifice?" And I said, "I do not have anyone that I want to sacrifice." Then that man said, "Get out of my consulting room." He got so angry. He was really angry, that Sangoma. So my friend, the one who had taken me to that village, he said, "Just name anyone amongst your relatives." So I then ended up naming my own mother, because when I tried to mention the name of my sister, the words refused to come out of my mouth until I mentioned my mother's name. I said Priscilla, Priscilla, for my mother was called Priscilla. And when I said Priscilla, Priscilla, that was when I saw my mother. She was just lying suspended in the air. That was when I was told that I had to slaughter her as if I was slaughtering a cow or a goat. Then there was this other metallic dish that was placed underneath her body that was floating in mid-air. Then I was given this other knife that looked almost like an okapi, and I was told to slaughter her. So as I was holding her head, and then I started to slaughter her, I cut her throat open, and then the Sangoma turned her body around so that the blood that was now coming out of her neck will fall straight into that metallic dish. And then my mother passed away. That is the same way that my mother died back home in Zim. One day, my mother, it was during the raining season, she was busy working in her fields, in her maize field. That was when she was attacked by this other man who has never been found. This man came and slaughtered my mother as if she was a goat, a domestic animal. And after she was slaughtered like that, the man then removed some of the body parts, but only on the neck area. And then the man raped my mother. And we were told after the post-mortem that my mother, she was abused after she had died, and that is the way that my mother passed away. I went and I attended my mother's funeral. I was then told that I had to take some of the soil from her grave, and I returned with her soil back to South Africa. I still have that soil in my bedroom. That is some of the things that I use to call upon the spirit of my mother, because when I call upon her spirit, when she gets into that coffin that always stay in my bedroom, the next morning when I wake up, a spirit would have disappeared from that coffin, but I'll see huge sums of money in that coffin. So that is how I did my first sacrifices. And one by one, I stole the lives of my relatives until I touched the life of my sister. Unfortunately, my sister was a prayer warrior. So after I had dedicated her, because in that year I was supposed to sacrifice one of my other sister. You know, when you are siblings, there is one of your siblings, the one that you feel that you are very close. So I was really close to this other sibling of mine, even though I had made her to become mentally ill so that I can avoid having her sacrificed. Then I sacrificed this other sister of mine, that one that I had tried to sacrifice in the first place. when I had sacrificed her, that was when I was punished, because that Sangoma said that, look what you have done to my shrine, because at that time when we had sacrificed her, the shrine was burnt down, because this Sangoma had to sacrifice many of his cattle so that he can get his powers back after his shrine had been burnt to the ground. So he punished me, and he said that, I thought that you were going to live until you are of an old age, but I am going to cut off your years that I was supposed to give to you. So next year, that is when my life is going to be cut off and I am going to die. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by our brother. He texted another message to me and he said, so far I have spoken with another healer who is in Chipinge. So this healer has told me to come and visit him. And when I would go to his shrine, he is going to do another ritual. What he is going to do is that he is going to connect my heart with the heart of this other tortoise that we are going to find in the forest. So as long as that tortoise will be alive, at least I am going to be alive. But the only disadvantage is that even if when I grow old to the point whereby I am supposed to die, as long as that tortoise is still alive, then I won't die. That is the only disadvantage. So our brother is scared. He said, I do not have any family at all. So if I do these rituals for now, just to avoid me dying next year, then what is going to happen if I live until I am 100 and something years old? Who is going to take care of me then? Strange things do happen in this world.